Hello everyone, my name is Rob Wudkocks, and I would like to start by saying thank you so much for viewing my artwork and responding to it. I would like to start by sharing a few things about myself, and I'll continue by explaining a little bit about my art so you can get to know it better. So for beginning, my name is Rob. I'm from the United States. I grew up there, and I currently live in Mexico City. And I spend most of my time creating. For me, art is a lifestyle. It is a part of who I am. And the photos that you see in this exhibition are all stories that have a basis in my real life. For me, art is about sharing with people. It's about telling stories. And most importantly, it's about that connection that can be created between different people from all different places. So behind my photography, there are many connecting themes. My photography is about humanity, it's about nature, and it's about that connection of the two. I think that anybody who is aware of the news or what's going on in the world knows that we are living in an environmental crisis, and most of this is caused by humans. So in my work, I want to explore those subjects and document places that are very dear to me in a hope that we can celebrate nature, grow as a humanity, and find solutions to make the world a better place. When I was a kid, I felt very lucky. My parents adopted me, and I always felt accepted and loved because of that. I knew that I had my own place in the world because my family chose me. And when I was young, my parents, we spent a lot of time in nature. We went camping every year as a family. It was before MySpace and Instagram and having an iPhone in your hand all the time. And so I really came to love nature. It became a safe place for me. So as I started developing into photography, nature was really important to me. I wanted to include it in my visions. So I love taking portraits, but I wanted to take portraits that connected to nature. As I started traveling the world, that's when I started realizing that we were really facing a crisis. I think one of the first times I started connecting the dots was in my trip to Mount Everest. I went with a team of 10 people to Mount Everest Base Camp, and we did a 16-day journey into the Himalayas, and we got to know the local Sherpa people. And all I remember was them saying, the weather has never been like this. Many of them had spent their entire life cultivating animals or crops in that region. And one thing that they noticed was that, for hundreds of years, the weather would do the same thing every year. It could be predicted. But in the last 30 years, things have slowly been changing, and more recently, rapidly changing. Climate patterns have changed. Things that were predictable before had changed. And as I started traveling the rest of the world, I started hearing the same thing everywhere. Like, oh, it used to rain every year in November, but now it's dry all month. And that started to worry me. It made me realize firsthand that all the things that scientists have been telling us for years are true. And I think right now we're living in a time where the majority of people live in urban environments. They're not connected to nature as much. And so we have a real problem on our hands. If people can't see a problem, then they won't care about it. So for me, I want my photos to be a conversation starter, to talk about how can we as humans connect back to nature to envision a world where we live in harmony with our environment. And of course, there are many documentaries and educational resources that I aim to point people towards so they can learn more for themselves about the science behind environmental change. But I really think it's important that we start those conversations. And in this world, art connects to science, which connects to design, which connects to industry. And all of those things are essentially linked in a way that influences each other. You know, if we produce things in a more eco-friendly way, then it creates cleaner air, you know? And so as an artist, if you can start that conversation and share that idea with people who are in design, maybe they'll think of better ways to design to help the environment. So I think it's important for people to think of both the micro and the macro levels of environmental change. On a micro level, on a personal level, of course, I engage in actions that will hopefully minimize my own impact on the environment. At home, I eat mostly vegetarian. I buy mostly handmade or secondhand clothing. I carry a water bottle every day, so I don't buy plastic water bottles. There's a lot of little things like that that I enact in my life. I turn lights off when they're not needed. I don't use extra water. And I would encourage anyone out there listening to consider these types of things. You know, what can you do in your daily life to help this environment that we depend on? But I think on a larger level, it's amazing that I've been given this platform to talk about these subjects and engage thousands of people. And I find that really exciting. Because like I said before, starting a conversation is what starts the actions for change. Now, my work also touches a lot on social inequality. Coming from the US, there's a lot of racism, there's a lot of class inequality, there's a lot of issues within the LGBTQ community. So all of these things are really important to me. From a young age, I was aware of how unequal the world is because I had been adopted from a really unhealthy situation. And after being adopted, I ended up working with foster kids in the United States. So in the United States, we have a whole system where if a child is being abused, they're put in a temporary home, and maybe they get adopted by that family, or maybe they go back and they live in a home with a group of children, kind of like an orphanage. And I think through working with those kids, it showed me just how broken the systems are that we live in, how broken our societies are. You know, you have these powerful people on one side that take too many resources, you know, create industries that pollute too much, and everyone that's left on this side doesn't have any choice in the matter. They're just, you know, punished by these actions. And I think from a young age, seeing these kids suffer through the injustice that they had been facing, it made me realize that I wanted to create change. I wanted to create a world where people care about others, where people take care of each other. And through my art, I hope that people can see that. Sometimes I will be sitting at home and I'll be thinking like, okay, for example, I'm here sitting in my room. Maybe I'm afraid to take the next step in my career or in my life to improve my circumstances. And right next door, there's another person sitting in their own box. We're all limiting ourselves and putting ourselves in a box based on society's labels, based on expectations that are placed on us, when in reality, we have the choice to do anything we want in this lifetime. How freeing is the concept that I could just go out tomorrow and drive to a mountain and just live off the land. I could go volunteer at a farm. I could go, harvest fruit and make juice for people. Like, there's so many things I could do in my life. At this moment, I feel like photography is a way for me to communicate grand ideas and grand stories, and that's a powerful tool. So I'm gonna keep pursuing that. But at any moment, any one of us could do anything we want. That's a powerful idea. And I think that our societies limit that concept and try to keep us in our boxes. They want us to be in our boxes, not experiencing everything. Because if everybody was equal and experiencing everything, then there wouldn't be elite people. Now, all of us have been living through a pandemic this year. I think maybe 2020 and now 2021 have been one of the most challenging times for many people in the world. We've been isolated. Many people have lost loved ones. Many people have been sick in ways that they've never experienced before. It's all very real. At the same time, it's been a year of learning. It's been a year of connecting with the self. It's been a year of recognizing societal issues and facing them. And I think those are beautiful parts of the last year. For me, I was definitely challenged. I lost job opportunities. I couldn't create my group photos for a while because, of course, we all had to be quarantined and alone. So I had to break out of that mold that I was in before and find new ways to create. I created self-portraits. I created with some of my neighbors. I created in distanced spaces so that everybody could be safe. So I think the amazing thing about humans is that we know how to adapt. We are very capable creatures. And I think when this world throws a challenge at us, we study it, we absorb it, we process that information, and we put out something new. And that's a powerful gift. Many creatures just, live in their environment and follow the same routine over and over. And what's interesting about humans is we've found the ability to adapt to anything. Now, we've faced a challenging year, but think of how far we've come. If we've come this far, we can go much further. And like I said before, part of that involves doing better and treating our environment better. The last thing I want to talk about is our relationships with our bodies. And I'll talk about my own, for starters. I think in this society, we're all taught some standard of beauty. It might be different in different countries. It might be different in even different cities or different families based on how you're raised. But we all get taught some standard of beauty. I know here in Mexico, the standards are different than in the United States, and I'm sure the same is true for Russia. But, from a young age, we look at magazines, we look at television, we hear things on the radio, and we see these standards of beauty that are celebrated. But every person in the world deserves to feel good about who they are. So why would we listen to those standards? Now, for me, I remember living in the United States and being told that because I was labeled a man, I had to be masculine. I had to be muscular, I had to eat a lot, I had to wear certain clothes. And for a while, I didn't have a great relationship with my body because I felt like I was too thin. I didn't have enough muscle. I didn't want to wear super masculine clothes all the time. And that created a separation between my body and my mind. And they were at war. But with time, I found a community where people loved their bodies no matter if they were big or small, or more feminine or more masculine. And I have to say, I've come to a point in my life where I'm just thankful for my body, you know? Like, our bodies take us through the day, every single day, in and out. Where would we be without our bodies? And whether we are able-bodied or have a disability, the fact that we can be here and experience life in this body that we have, that is a gift. I remember one of my best friends back home who is deaf. I remember thinking, you know, how is that for you? What is your experience like being deaf in this world that is mostly designed for people with hearing? I remember asking my friend, if you could get your hearing back, would you? And what she said blew my mind. She said, actually, I love my deafness. I love the fact that I live in a world of peace that many other people will never experience. And that blew my mind, because I had always thought, like, I would never want to lose my hearing, right? But when I thought of it that way, it made me realize that, like, every experience is valid and every experience has its pros and its cons. Imagine you're trying to sleep at night and the neighbors are shouting in the apartment next door. In that moment, it might be nice to, you know, not have your hearing. And I really appreciated that about my friend's honesty with, you know, accepting who she was and not wanting to change that. So in closing, I hope that you feel a little bit more connected to the art pieces that I've created. And I hope that you're inspired to create your own stories in your lifetime. Document your own experiences and share them with the people around you. Because if we don't share with each other, if we don't create change, then there will be no change. So much love from Mexico. I can't wait to see your videos and your pictures and everything interacting with the artwork. And I hope to see you in the future. In the meantime, besos desde Mexico.